In Argenfall, scent was memory. The city rose in pale stone and narrow streets built along a river that carried both trade and whispers. For alphas it was a place of ambition, for omegas a place of endurance, for betas a place of balance, and for those born with fire in their blood it was rarely enough. Kael had always been one of those. Even as a boy his presence was sharp, bright, restless. Teachers had called him gifted, elders had called him dangerous. Other alphas had called him a rival long before he understood what rivalry meant. He had noticed him first by scent, rain and iron, smoke and sun. It was strange how something so intangible could feel so solid, so certain. Eli, smaller and quieter, had learned early that omegas survived by reading the air, by understanding moods before words were spoken. And Kael's mood had always been movement. They met properly when they were 16. Lee was carrying a basket of fabric from his mother's shop when he slipped on the wet stones near the river. The basket tipped, fabric spilling into the water. He froze, heart pounding, because cloth was expensive and mistakes were not forgiven easily. Kael had appeared beside him, fast and wordless, pulling the fabric free before the current could take it. "You should be more careful," he said, but there was no cruelty in it. "I was," Eli replied, embarrassed. "The ground was," Kael laughed. "It was loud, unguarded, fair." From that day they became something like companions. They walked together, they studied together. Kael spoke of distant cities, of training halls, of titles and ranks and battles that had not yet been fought. Eli listened, and in listening he learned to love. Omegas were not taught to dream large. They were taught to dream safely. But loving Kael was not safe, it was inevitable. Their first bond was not declared in ceremony but in silence, a shared breath in the dark, a hand held too long, a scent that lingered when it should have faded. By the time they were 20 they shared a room near the river, its walls thin, its windows small, its warmth borrowed from each other's bodies. At first it was enough. Kael would come home smelling of training halls and steel, drop his coat and pull Eli close as if the world outside had tried to claim him and failed. Eli would cook, clean, laugh, listen. They fit into the old rhythm of alpha and omega without ever speaking its rules. But ambition does not sleep, it stirs, it grows, it scratches at the inside of the chest. Kael began to leave earlier, to return later, to speak less, to stare out of windows instead of into Eli's eyes. One night as wind rattled the glass and the river hissed below, Eli finally asked, "Are you unhappy?" Kael's shoulders stiffened. "No," but his scent said otherwise. "You don't smell like home anymore," Eli whispered. The words were not an accusation, they were a confession. Kael turned then, and for a moment Eli saw the boy he had fallen in love with, the one who had once caught fabric from the river and laughed. "I can't stay here forever," Kael said. "This city is too small." "For me?" Eli asked. "For me," Kael repeated, and that difference was everything. The silence that followed was not empty, it was full of things that could not be undone. "I need to go," Kael said at last. "There are campaigns, training beyond this district, ranks I can reach." Eli's hands tightened in his lap. "And me?" Kael did not answer. That night they lay together without touching. In the morning the bed was cold. Only a folded note remained on the table. "I need to become someone first." Lee sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, breathing in the fatting scent of smoke and sun, and for the first time the city of Argenfall felt unbearably large. The days after Kael's departure passed like water through Eli's hands. At first he woke each morning expecting to hear Kael's footsteps, to smell the familiar iron and fire scent drifting from the door. Each sound in the hallway made his heart lift, only to fall again. He told himself that this was temporary, that alphas with ambition always traveled and always returned. But weeks passed, the room grew colder. Lee continued his work at the fabric shop, his fingers moving automatically through patterns he had known since childhood. Customers spoke to him, he answered. Life went on around him, and somehow he was still inside it, even as it felt distant, muted, as if he were watching from behind glass. At night the silence was loud. Kael's side of the bed remained untouched. Eli did not remove his belongings. To do so felt like an admission that Kael was not coming back. When the sickness began it was gentle at first, a wave of dizziness, a loss of appetite, a constant fatigue that settled into his bones. He assumed grief had finally made itself physical. Omegas, after all, were known to break quietly, but the sickness did not fade, it sharpened. The smell of food turned his stomach. His heat came early, intense, disorienting, leaving him shaking and breathless on the floor of the small apartment. Concern finally overcame denial. The clinic was bright and smelled of antiseptic and bitter herbs. The doctor was an older beta with kind eyes and careful hands. He examined Eli in silence, his brow furrowing. "Omega," he said gently, "when was the last time you were with an alpha?" Eli's throat closed. "My bond was some time ago." The doctor nodded slowly. "I need you to be very still." The minutes stretched, heavy and endless, then the doctor's scent shifted, softened, as if he were approaching a fragile thing. "You're carrying," he said. The words did not make sense. "I can't be," Eli replied. "He's gone." "Life does not always wait for permission," the doctor said. "The child is healthy, strong, and alphas." The room tilted. Eli's breath came fast, uneven. He laughed once, a thin, broken sound. Kael had become someone, and Eli had become something left behind. He did not cry in the clinic. Omegas learned early how to keep themselves together in public. He bowed his head, thanked the doctor, and walked home through streets that felt suddenly unfamiliar. That night he lay on the bed and pressed a hand to his stomach. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the life growing inside him. I didn't know. There was no answer, only the quiet, relentless passage of time. The months that followed were the hardest of Eli's life. His body changed, growing heavier, slower. His scent shifted, thick with pregnancy, drawing unwanted attention. Alphas on the street looked at him longer than they should. Betas spoke to him more gently. Pity clung to him like dust. He learned to walk with his shoulders straight. He moved to a smaller room near the edge of the city where the streets were quieter and the neighbors less curious. He worked as long as he could, until the weight of the child made standing unbearable. At night he dreamed of Kael. In his dreams Kael returned, apologetic, arms open, voice soft with regret. Eli always woke alone. The child came during a storm. Thunder cracked the sky open. Rain hammered the roof. Eli screamed and cried and begged the world not to break him again. When the pain finally ended and the thin, fierce cry filled the room, Eli sobbed harder than he ever had before. The midwife placed the infant in his arms. "A strong one," she said, "an alpha." Eli looked down at the small, red face, at the bright, unmistakable eyes. Kael's eyes. He named him Aaron because the air had changed forever. Eli learned the rhythm of life all over again. Each day was measured in feedings, in the soft weight of his son in his arms, in sleepless nights and whispered lullabies. He learned to navigate a city where alphas often overlooked omegas with children, where pity or suspicion followed him like a shadow. And yet every time Aaron laughed, every time he pressed a small hand against Eli's chest and cooed, the world felt slightly more bearable. He smelled Kael and Aaron, in the sharp, bright scent of youth, in the restless energy that would not be contained. And sometimes that smell made Eli's chest ache in ways he could not name. "I wish he could meet his father," Eli whispered one night, rocking Aaron to sleep, "but you wouldn't understand him yet." Aaron's tiny fingers closed around his thumb and Eli kissed his forehead, tasting milk and rain on his lips. Eli's life became a series of routines. Work in the morning, lessons and games in the afternoon, bath and dinner in the evening, bedtime stories before the night. Every day was predictably exhausting, but it was safe. It was theirs. For 5 years Eli built a wall around them, thick and unyielding. He did not speak of Kael, did not acknowledge the scent that lingered in memory. Alphas had no place in their world anymore unless they learned to stay. Kael returned in autumn, unannounced. Eli had been taking Aaron to the market as he did every Thursday when the sharp scent hit him first. It was unmistakable, commanding, controlled, unmistakably Kael. Eli froze, his hand tightened around Aaron. The child laughed at a passing dog, oblivious, innocent, untouched by history. Eli moved instinctively in front of him, blocking the alpha's approach. Kael's eyes caught them before he fully registered the scene. And then he saw the child who carried his scent like a living echo. The world narrowed, the market, the crowd, the smells, all of it faded until there was only Aaron and the small, unyielding Omega standing protectively beside him. Kael's breath caught. His knees went slightly weak. He had left a child behind, a living, breathing, screaming piece of himself. And worse, he had left the Omega who had raised him, the Omega who had survived without him. Eli did not move. His eyes were cold, his scent sharp with defensive fear. "Run," he whispered to Aaron, who instinctively clung to him. Kael did not move immediately. He studied them, heart-breaking in slow motion, and then finally he stepped forward. "Eli," he said, his voice was rough with regret. Eli's eyes narrowed. "You don't get to stop," Kael said and raised his hands slightly, careful not to overstep. "I am not here to take him from you. I am here because I need you to hear me. I need you to see me." Eli laughed bitterly. "See you? You left, you disappeared, you didn't even try to write." Kael's jaw tight. "I was young, stupid, afraid. I thought I needed to become someone first. I didn't understand what I already had." Eli's chest ached. Years of grief, exhaustion, and protective instinct rose like a wave. He didn't trust the words. He never would, not yet. Aaron tugged at Eli's sleeve. "Are you him?" The question broke Kael in two. His child, bright and innocent, looking to him for a father's face. His scent unmistakable, braided with Eli, clinging to the boy in ways he could feel in his bones. "Yes," he said, voice shaking. I am your father." Eli tightened his grip on Aaron. "You left, you forfeited that right." Kael swallowed. "I know, I understand that now, but I am here. I am not leaving again. I will stay. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust." Eli's eyes did not soften, not yet. "Trust isn't given, it's earned, and it's not just about me, it's about him." Kael nodded. "I know, and I will earn it slowly, every day if I have to." For the first time in 5 years, Eli realized Kael was no longer the boy who had run. He had returned with scars, discipline, and humility. But would it be enough? Could he prove himself to the Omega he had abandoned and the child who had grown in his absence? Eli did not answer. He turned, holding Aaron closer, and walked home. Kael followed at a distance, not pushing, not demanding, but following. For the first time, Eli allowed himself to notice. Kael stayed. He didn't leave, and somehow that was a beginning. Kael returned to Argentfall with one purpose: to stay. Not to reclaim what he had lost in a single moment, but to slowly, painstakingly prove himself to Eli and, more importantly, to Aaron. At first, Eli resisted every overture. He did not let Kael inside the apartment, did not allow him to carry Aaron, did not answer his messages. He had built a life of routine, of safety, of control. Kael's presence threatened every brick of it. But Kael was patient in a way Eli had never expected. He learned to move quietly, to respect boundaries, to observe the rhythms of their life without disturbing them. Every Thursday when Eli took Aaron to the market, Kael appeared, but not too close. He let the boy explore the stalls, let him pick fruits, laugh, run. He never reached out immediately, never tried to assert himself. He simply existed at the edge of their world, waiting. Aaron noticed him first. The bright, inquisitive alpha scent of Kael was unmistakable, and the boy's curiosity was sharper than Eli anticipated. "Who's that?" Aaron asked one afternoon, tugging at Eli's sleeve. "Just someone passing by," Eli said, too quickly, too tightly. But Kael smiled, not arrogantly, not with pride, but gently, softly, a smile meant to reassure. Aaron studied him, his small brow furrowed. Then after a moment he whispered, "He smells like me." Lee froze, Kael's chest tightened. The child had recognized him before Eli would allow it, before Eli had accepted it in his own mind. "You're my dad?" Aaron asked, almost shyly. Kael knelt to Aaron's level. "Yes, I am," he said. Aaron looked at Eli. "Is that okay?" Eli swallowed. It's okay, but I make the rules," he said firmly, trying to maintain control. "You need to respect that." Kael inclined his head. "I will, always." It was a promise he would keep. Every day he showed up. He learned to cook simple meals for the boy. He learned which herbs made Aaron sleepy, which fruits made him giggle, which bedtime stories calmed him when he was frightened. He carried Aaron to school, accompanied him to lessons, played with him in the small park near their apartment, and slowly, painfully, Eli noticed. Kael was not the same alpha who had left. He was steadier, gentler, aware. He did not dominate, he supported. He waited for permission before touching, before speaking. He let Eli lead, let the Omega's instincts guide the household, and yet quietly he became part of it. Eli's scent softened over the weeks. He noticed it in himself first, a willingness to glance toward Kael, a reluctant acceptance when Kael handed him a basket of laundry, the tiniest relief in sharing the burdens of childrearing. One evening after Aaron had fallen asleep, Kael lingered near the doorway. His presence was quiet, almost hesitant. "You don't have to let me in yet," he said. "I know I hurt you, I know it will take time." Eli's shoulders tightened. "It's not just me, it's him, he's never known you, I can't undo 5 years of absence with a few words." Kael nodded. "I know, and I wouldn't want it to be easy, I just want the chance, one day at a time." Eli looked at him, really looked. Kael's eyes were not the reckless fire of youth anymore. They were steady, tempered, deep. And for the first time in years, Eli allowed himself to imagine a future where Kael might stay, not as a visitor, not as a memory, but as part of their lives. It did not come easily, it did not come quickly, but it began. They ate together that night, Kael quietly helping with the dishes, Aaron asleep in the next room. And Eli realized, almost unwillingly, that he felt a little lighter. Not because the past was erased, but because the present was starting to feel bearable. Kael's presence no longer smelled like abandonment, it smelled like possibility. And Eli, despite every instinct, allowed himself to hope. Days bled into weeks, and Kael's presence became a quiet rhythm in their lives. He did not demand acknowledgement, did not force connection. He simply existed at the edges, steady and patient. Aaron, naturally curious and perceptive, began to notice him in ways Eli could not control. At first it was subtle, lingering glances, questions about his scent, the way he sometimes mirrored Kael's movements without realizing it. "Why does he smell like you, Papa?" Aaron asked one morning while helping Eli knead dough for breakfast. Eli froze. His hands trembled slightly over the warm flour. "It's complicated," he said, hopping to distract the boy. But Kael was there, kneeling beside them. "Because I am a part of him," he said gently, "just like I am a part of you, little one, but I will always respect your space." Aaron considered that for a moment, then smiled brightly. "Then can you teach me how to cook like you?" Kael chuckled. "Yes, but you must promise to be patient." And in that small act, Eli felt the first true shift since Kael's return. He watched them work together, and for the first time he allowed himself to imagine a world where Kael belonged here, not as a visitor, not as someone who had abandoned them, but as a father, as a partner, as part of the family they had built alone. Kael's integration was slow and deliberate. He learned the small details, how Aaron preferred his toys arranged, how he liked his socks folded, which bedtime stories soothed him when nightmares came. He carried the child to school, played games with him, even took over the more mundane chores Eli had been doing alone. One evening, after a long day of errands and lessons, Kael found himself sitting on the floor of their small apartment, Aaron leaning against his chest, sleepy but talkative. "Why did you leave?" Aaron asked softly, his small hand tracing Kael's arm. Kael swallowed. The question cut deeper than anything Eli had said. "Because I was afraid. Afraid I wasn't enough, afraid I wasn't ready to be the alpha you and your mother deserved. But leaving was the biggest mistake I ever made." Aaron's eyes were wide, innocent, and trustful. Kael held his gaze. "I am here now, and I will never leave again, I promise you that." Eli watched quietly from across the room. His chest ached with the weight of years of hurt and fear, but he also felt a cautious warmth. Kael was proving day by day that he was different now, that he could stay. That he wanted to stay. It was not forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning.